I don't know whether you were fascinated, but I was fascinated watching the transition from a discussion around supply to a discussion around demand. And I think Skrmatis touched on this. Skrmatis, you did, when you talked about, a laboratory can proceed in doing research around product development with no idea what the market is, or can spend some time branding itself around market and then looking to how to produce that product and or sell it to a market that we know exists. It's in the millions, which is in a way why I went to the other microphone instead of this one to talk about the health market and the branding of the product around health. So it's exciting to see a discussion on marketing. And I think it is a true challenge to the industry itself. And it's a very different question and set of questions that we raised when we were talking about hemp fiber. The challenges of hemp as a food, something going into people's bodies, takes you into the realm of health, unless it's purely for substitute for sweets. But again, we're into health there too. So I'm delighted, Ken, that discussion found ourselves into the realm of marketing and how critical it is to build an industry and understanding the sources of demand. So what was also mentioned, and I think Skrmatis and others raised it as well, is the relevance of money. Anybody want to raise their hand about the relevance of money to industry development? Yeah. I mean, we know that at a business level we need money, and we know certainly at an industry level to grow that industry we need money. But it's a very different set of issues, what a business needs and what an industry needs. And I'm hoping that in the course of the discussion, and Vitaly, you can come to the stage now, we might get into a little bit of some of the distinctions between what a business needs and what an industry needs. And what an industry needs is an AHA, and what a business may need is an ATB, but I won't go any further than that. Okay, you're on. Skrmatis, he comes with various titles, the one we have in the brochure, but another one, well, I won't give it, you give it. Sure. You know it better than I do.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vitaly Melentiev. It's very hard to be wedged in between a very exciting conversation revolving around marketing and the drinks following the conference. So we'll try to keep it to the point, try to keep it relevant and interesting. And definitely on the marketing, one thing I can tell that my dog has no idea about hemp, but is definitely enjoying it. And I'm definitely putting it on almost into every meal as a food supplement for my beloved pet. It doesn't care for the marketing, but it loves the product for sure. Again, name Vitaly Melentiev, another difficult name. I am the partner and a portfolio manager at Cornerstone Fiduciary Wealth Management. Wear a couple more hats, and today the more interesting hat for you might be my position as the chair of the investment committee at the Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation Board. I'm also the chairman of the board for the National Depository of Ukraine. That's way on the other side of the world. Yes, so today we have a wonderful panel. Can I ask the panelists to please come up? And I'll introduce everyone in the due course. And we're going to talk about financing, challenges and opportunity. Money, money, money. Every business starts with a wonderful idea, but it's always driven by and ended by one thing, is the money, profit, right? And of course, before we get to the profit, we need to talk about how the heck do we fund that thing. These are the challenges we want to discuss today, possibly shed the light on some opportunities. You know, the hemp industry is kind of like a second child. The older child got all the excitement, and I don't want to say older, but the first child got all the excitement of the investors. Everyone flocked to the cannabis industry, and because it was trendy, fashionable, and so on and so forth. Not just individual or private investors, but all the way from publicly traded companies all the way to ETFs. If you're too lazy to invest into the individual stocks, you buy an index or a basket of those things. So it went as far as that. It's a frustration that we don't see a similar level of interest to the second child, the one that's struggling to raise the awareness, the one that's struggling not just on the marketing of the product itself, but on actual funding by the investors. And it's definitely an undervalued opportunity. It's agriculture, it's high-value food processing, and it's definitely deserving its spot under the sunlight. So in that context, we have a wonderful panel today. I'm going to introduce everyone, and I believe we have one substitution on the field. Instead of Paul Berezhinsky, we have David Saltman of Inca. You've met David already. We also have Peter Kingdale with Raintree Financial, Chief Executive Officer. We have probably one of the more popular financial institutions representative, ATB Financial, Lowell Befus, right? Befus, sorry. Regional Agriculture Director. And last but not least, Lori Jo Graham, Senior Investment Attraction Officer with Alberta Agriculture and Irrigation. So without much further ado, I would like to call to the microphone David, because I believe, David, you have a flight, right, in a few short moments?
You're so lucky. I only get 10 minutes no matter what, because I'm running on down the hallway.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
And I have no prepared remarks because I'm a stand-in. So I thought very briefly I'd talk about two things, market conditions, and then some advice to some of you entrepreneurs out there. I've been building businesses now, clean tech businesses, for 3 decades. Kind of frightening to think about that. But I'm here to tell no lies. And when we created Inca, I thought by now we'd be fully funded, almost up and running. And then market conditions changed, if you haven't noticed. When Silicon Valley Bank went down, so did all the pencils at the venture capital community around the world. Literally fewer VC deals funded than in the last 20 years. Then interest rates went up. Fantastic. Private equity depends on, and private equity, if you don't know the difference, these are guys who normally buy existing cash flowing businesses and scale them. They depend on debt. That debt went from free money to 5, 6, 7% finance, killed more deals than you've ever seen in your life. And so in evolving this whole world, stepping in, government-backed funding, sometimes in the form of grants, sometimes in the form of loan guarantees or loan-backed guarantees, or actual people like the Agricultural Finance Service Corporation with a mandate to fund clean tech, if you will, and ag tech. Those became more and more important. Also, family offices, private wealth became more important, and the family offices have almost stepped into the role of the VCs in many cases. They see opportunity in industry, and so we've gotten very good traction. Some of these family offices, by the way, manage $2, $3, $4 billion. These are large family offices like the Porsche family office, and et cetera. I can go into a number of them. So the current climate, this last couple years, enormously difficult for us entrepreneurs who build businesses. Just the toughest markets I've ever existed. That's starting to change. There's visibility now to interest rates. The US Fed has actually done a remarkable job. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, everyone should be celebrating the Fed in terms of how it behaved, and definitely a soft landing to inflation that everyone predicted. All the economists didn't happen nearly at the level that they predicted. That has stabilized interest rates. Interest rates are beginning to come down. It's going to be a very slow decline, just all of you know. I mean, Powell doesn't call me up, but it's pretty easy to read the tea leaves if you know how to listen to what he says. And so the markets are, the good news, the silver lining in this last couple of years is the markets are stabilizing and there is capital. And there's a huge amount of capital that's not deployed. Capital has to move. You don't get return on investment if you aren't investing. So I think for us, you know, there was a big talk about brand. I love that conversation. I'm a marketing guy at my nature and a sales guy, as you can tell. Like brand, the brand of Canada, the brand of hemp here in Canada, and industrial uses of agriculture in general is a big area. Carbon is a big area. And this is, as we've talked about and heard mentioned several times, this is a real topic of conversation. Even though you have groups like just recently, last week, BlackRock, Vanguard, a couple of the really big wealth management companies sort of pulled back from their ESG commitments. Industry, I'm here to tell you, I deal with industry every day. These are my clients, my customers. they're not pulling back. They're still committed to their to net carbon sequestration. They're committed to more recyclable life cycle awareness of their own products, circular economy. These are still things that are talked about in boardrooms, and they filter all the way down through to us as suppliers. So that's my little macro talk. I think from a point of view of an entrepreneur, my advice to people really trying to make this into businesses is it's not as easy as it used to be, which means you really have to have your business plan and your financial model tight, your value proposition tight. You really, as much as possible, you really have to prototype your products and demonstrate market traction. You really, we used to get funded. Listen, I've been funded on ideas, not quite back of the envelope ideas, but on concepts, and they became companies. But now you have to be much more disciplined. You have to really engage your customers and your suppliers, supply chain guarantee, technology risk management, really being able to de-risk the technology and really demonstrate a pro forma that's a realistic pro forma in order now to attract capital to business. So this is going to be super interesting times. I think they're going to be very positive times. I feel that this industry in Canada has got nothing but growth potential. There's just no question in my mind. I wish we could change the name hemp to something like a canola. I think, you know, when I describe our company, we're a natural fiber composite company. We're fiber agnostic. Hemp just happens to be the best material and the least cost material for this, so it's an easy argument to make. But when we go to India, it's illegal, it'll be jute. If we go to Southeast Asia, it may be kanaf. So, you know, you have to somehow demonstrate the flexibility of it and the utility of this crop that used to, you know, be worldwide. Britannia could not have ruled the waves without hemp sales and rope. I mean, it was worldwide. It's gonna be worldwide again. So you're in a great place, a great market. I promise you, I wouldn't be here standing still after these last couple of years if I didn't believe that. But with that said, I'm incredibly optimistic about the pro forma of our industry. And believe me, they're coming. You know, I don't know, I mean, land values of just arable land has just doubled, right, this last year. I mean, people, big money, private equity money, big investors are looking at agriculture in a whole different light given global climate change, which, as one person said, is absolutely real. Please don't tell me that you believe otherwise. But to do that, we got to adapt. We got to look at how our agricultural region here is going to adapt itself. But as I said, I'm very optimistic, happy to be here. Sorry I have to run. What is it? You know, goodbye and thanks for the fish. Is like, I don't know, good. Anyway, those of you.
Thank you, Dave. This is the best part of the presentation. Get to talk and no questions afterwards, right? Let's talk about private equity. Can we? Peter, I think you have quite a bit of an insight on that, and you're welcome.
Well, that's going to be a tough act to follow. I was going to tell you to just sell it all on vision and don't worry about the pro formas. I still think there's a role for that, as much as I understand where Mark's coming from and market conditions have absolutely changed. I do think that one of the insights that I've come away from, so maybe just a little bit of background and then I'll get into it. So I'm Peter Kincaid and I run a business in Edmonton called Raintree Capital. We do a variety of different financial services, but we really specialize in the private capital markets. So we focus on private companies, advising them on how to raise capital, how to transact on mergers and acquisitions. We also make private capital opportunities available to everyday investors. So I definitely do have a background on the private equity side. When I think about what I've learned over the last year. I came to last year's conference and this year's conference, and I do detect something that has shifted, and that is, I think, the way that a number of the CEOs and other presenters are talking about their business. And I think that is the fundamental role of a CEO, is to be able to articulate your vision for your business, what the market looks like, and convey that to an investor audience and get them interested in the future upside. There's a lot of details and work that goes into actually transacting on a deal, but I think more than anything, it is ultra important to be able to tell your story. I have found through listening to today's conversations a couple of themes that I wanted to share with you. One is I heard a lot about talking about features of your products, but very little about the benefits. And I know that probably changed in the last conversation, but to me that is, marketing 101. It's unclear to me often when someone's describing their business, and I've had a number of conversations today one-on-one with some of you. It's very difficult for me as someone who's industry agnostic, doesn't come from an agricultural background, what it is that your product does, or more importantly, what problem does it solve? And I think you really, as an organization, need to be thinking about what problems do you solve? And start from that problem and work your way outward from there. I also think that, and of course we're at a conference, we're talking about the industry, and it's a pretty close-knit industry, but I think you need to think about how you're amplifying your message. And again, outside of the last panel, I haven't seen a lot about market development. I haven't seen a lot about partnerships, alliances. How do you get bigger companies to be listening to your ideas, to be partnering with you, to be an advocate, a champion, to be an investor in this industry? And I think amplification is a really, really important part. And I think the AHA has a role to play in that. Maybe the Alberta government has a role to play in that. But I think as an industry, you have to be thinking about how you amplify the message. And I know you're having to do that probably on a tight budget. So thinking about how is it that I'm getting into the market? How am I using my marketing budget in the most effective way? And as it comes to attracting investors, because that really at the end of the day is the exercise, is you are marketing the shares or the securities of your business. You need to amplify your message, and you need to be telling that story. And your role, particularly if you're the CEO of your business, your role is to be a storyteller. You need to be highly effective, communicating your story effectively, and telling that story into the marketplace, and repeat, repeat, repeat. Raising capital is extremely difficult, it's time consuming, and as a CEO, it will be a big part of your full-time job, and it, for a lot of you, will never end. So you need to be prepared for that, and you need to be very effective at that. And if you aren't effective at that, you need to get someone in your business who is, either as an advisor or someone who's a permanent employee, or even a part-time employee, but you need a champion for your business. And if you can't do that as a CEO, honestly, as someone who puts capital to work, who invests in private businesses, you may not be investable. And that might be a tough story to hear. It might be a tough pill to swallow, but it's, I think, important for you to acknowledge that and then try and find solutions to that very problem. Now, I don't want to be a complete Debbie Downer. I think the one other thing that I took away from being present today versus last year is the importance of culture in this industry. And what I'm delighted to say is that I think that the culture that's being created within this association at these conferences, your work together, working collaboratively, it really comes across. And I think that's really important. The private capital industry is a pretty small industry relative to the more traditional financial services industry in Canada. We do annual conferences, we work very collaboratively. There's lots and lots of market share for us all to go after. very few of you are actual competitors, and there's probably more market to develop than there is to compete for. So work together, find ways to collaborate, maybe merge, maybe find ways to create your own partnerships, tell each other's stories. Don't be closed-minded, be open-minded, because I think that's going to help you longer term. You may find an opportunity to attract capital to your colleague here, your peer here. And I'd encourage you to think about doing that. If the investor meeting didn't work for you, maybe it would work for somebody else. But I think you are, as an industry, have a huge global opportunity. And I think by working together, by telling your story effectively, you're going to succeed at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. As you correctly mentioned, the private equity piece of a pie is much smaller than conventional lending and other more traditional sources of financing. So with that, ATB will, Lowell from ATB will shed some light on the lending side of the business and what's new and great, or maybe not so great, in that part of the woods. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I guess my name's Lowell Beefus, for those that don't know me. I work at ATB. I am the Regional Director of Agriculture for North Central Alberta, which is basically Drayton Valley to Lloydminster, let's say Smoky Lake down to about Ponoka, that whole swath in that middle part there. So I've been in ag financing for about 23 years, and I've worked with other shades of blue, and only recently, the last 18 last 18 months with ATB. Anton Ballot asked me to come and speak today because he was unavailable, and he was here last year. And I think it's good for you to know that it was good to have him here last year. And I think he was here maybe the year before too, when talking with him. And the reason is because the conversations that are created here also create conversations behind the scenes at a place like ATB. And what have we been doing? I want to kind of tell you a little bit about that and why I moved over to ATB, and then just talk about some of the spots around lending. So ATB maybe hasn't been perfect when it's come to ag producer financing in the last few years, maybe agri-food, agribusiness, in the hemp industry in general. And they're really refocusing a lot of things in behind the scenes. And you know, all businesses make mistakes. No business is immune from making a mistake, whether it's a farm or whatever. And ATB, this past April, has launched a dedicated agriculture and agri-food, agribusiness team right across Alberta. We have 60 RMs that only focus on agriculture now. And you say, well, haven't they always had that? Well, no, they haven't. You'd have an RM in a small town like Provost or Vegreville or something like that, that not only were they serving the egg producer, they were also serving the small businesses, maybe oil and gas, maybe the funeral home, maybe food, like a restaurant or something like that. And you couldn't become an expert in everything. And it was very hard, and they just looked at things from a financial point of view and numbers. Having a dedicated team now has allowed us to really focus in on that spot, and having, back to my original point, Anton here, we are in the process of rewriting some policy to be a little bit more open to the idea of emerging markets like hemp and other agri-food, agribusiness technology space, and the consumer. But it's not without challenges, just like your industry. I think it's really exciting to be here and be able to talk to you about that. Anton's actually the head of our agri-food and agribusiness side, and he is, I think it's 2 weeks away that we launch our changes in that. And so I would encourage you that if ATB for some reason has rubbed you the wrong way in the past, to maybe just say, hey, maybe it's worth another look. But in general, we still have a lot of opportunity to grow, and what we need to hear is your story, and we also need you to communicate well with us so that we can communicate well with you. And it doesn't mean that there's an automatic yes. That's not what I'm saying, because there's no automatic yes in this industry, because we have to mitigate risk when lending money. So We do look at everything in a case, whether you're an ag production, so you grow hemp, or grow any kind of cereal crop or any other ag industry. My team across the province that I'm a part of will look at that side from the production right to one step off the farm, so the production side or the agribusiness, the agri-food side of things. And that allows us to finish off that value chain and be able to answer those questions that way and understand things that need to be mitigated and when people come and ask to borrow money. So we look at it case by case. We need to understand your cash flow. How is cash coming in and how is cash going out? We need to understand the security. And in this industry, and like a lot of agri-food tech businesses, there's a lot of specialized equipment that very, very hard to resell if we had to take it, unfortunately, as you know, something didn't go right with your farm. And so the value there is always hard to speculate. And that's where some of our policy changes have gone, that we're open to a little bit more unsecured debt, and if you have a good business plan and some things like that in agri-food, agri-processing, we might be able to look at things a little more with a liberal eye, I guess. Specialty equipment. Another thing that we are working hard at ATB is around your exports and your foreign exchange. And we have a whole team behind us now. So we're not just lenders, we have bank accounts, we have foreign exchange, we have all that stuff that can kind of tie in that financial picture. And when developing your business plan and coming in and talking to a relationship manager, and I heard it a lot here in the last presentation, but consumer adoption. You got to tell us, how is that consumer going to adopt to your product? And, you know, big picture and big ideas are great, but when it comes down to, we have to understand that consumer adoption and how are they going to purchase that product and how is that going to repay the debt that you borrowed. So I think ATB and with some of my other experiences, it really comes down to that we want to partner with people, but I've seen so many business plans where they've asked the finance institution to pretty much take on 100% of that risk when it comes to the financial side of things, the money side of things. And I'll tell you right now, if you're coming in that way, in that mindset, it's probably going to be a no. It's never going to be 100% risk of the financial institution, and it's probably never going to be 100% risk of the government to take on that risk. And and I heard it here earlier as well, find partners for your organization. You don't need to be the finance expert. Do what you do well and partner with people, partner with accountants, partner with lawyers, partner with marketing people to help grow the rest of your business and find those experts to make yourself better. So Canada is an ag powerhouse, and Alberta is a big part of that. And here at ATB, I think we can partner very closely with you, and we look to having those conversations to see what we can do. So.
It's good to see the commitment that ATB makes to the industry. One thing I would like to see next year at this conference is representatives from other banks also being in the room. My understanding is that right now you're the only one.
I don't know. Well, there's another banker there.
Is there another banker? Well,
that's good.
which bank? Okay. Yeah, hopefully the big five are going to join the party at some point. Okay, so we're on to Laura Jo Graham, sharing perspectives on the government involvement in financing.
All right, Corey, I don't know how I feel about that nickname. I feel like a shrunken, wrinkly, green man in robes. I don't know. I don't know if that works. But what I do appreciate is all the work and effort you put into getting the minister here. His schedule is very, very busy, and you pulled a rabbit out of your hat to get him here today, so I really appreciate that. And I echo the minister's comments about being enthusiastic about the tremendous opportunity for hemp to diversify the economy in Alberta and create jobs here in the province, in rural Alberta and in the cities. And the engagement sessions that he spoke of, I was at the table, the capital attracting capital tables in Lethbridge and in Calgary. I did 8 different rounds of tables. I had 8 different conversations. And I can tell you, hemp isn't the only industry that is facing challenges for agri-processing. We heard a lot of good information. We're going to bring that information back in and look at some different tools and some different resources and different partnerships that we can bring forward to help pave the way. So I'm going to quickly review a few things because I'm happy the minister did a lot of my talking for me. So I have 5 quick slides to talk about. The first one, is the Sustainable Canadian Agriculture Partnership. So this is a federal-provincial partnership. We're in the first year of a 5-year program. People might remember CAP, the Canadian Agriculture Partnership. This time we get sustainable in the name, so I'm excited about that. 2 of the programs that I'm going to refer to on this slide are the value-added and the on-farm value-added programs. So originally this was new products to market, and now it's morphed into more looking at expanding capacity, increasing revenue, and creating jobs. So these 2 programs are on offer. They'll, as the minister said, they'll open up again in April. And the value added has 2 streams. One is the export stream that people were referencing before, marketing. We can help out with that. And the other is a core stream, and the dollars attached to that is a maximum of $250,000. Okay, and the next one is emerging opportunities. And I'm happy to have my colleague, Julie Tarrant, here with me. Julie, stand up so people can see you. She's a program lead on the program. So this one is when you have a significant change in your company or an impact on the industry, like you're moving the needle in the industry. There's a number of companies that were successful in getting emerging opportunities. It is by invitation only, so it's good to have conversations with myself and Julie first to see if you're a good fit for the program. So as I said, the intake will be in the spring. We have a website there that you can access. There you can subscribe, so you get up to the minute. When I know the program's open, then you'll know at that same minute as well. So I highly recommend everybody to do that, and then you can have a look at the terms and conditions, the funding list, so you can be prepared for that likely April opening. And another program that we're very excited about that we launched last year is the Agri-Processing Investment Tax Credit. So this provides a 12% non-refundable tax credit for companies that are investing in agri-processing projects. And it's $10 million to investment. That's the minimum. And companies, corporations have 10 years to claim the tax credit against their provincial income tax. And we're the first experiment, I guess we'd call it that, pilot in the government of Alberta for this tax credit. And there's a couple of other industries that are also looking at using this as a model. So I am an investment attraction officer, and we offer concierge services. So you can come to me when you're looking at building a new processing plant or expanding one in Alberta, and I will help you with regulatory pathways. I will help you, introduce you to funding. We've got some people in the room. Trevor with Ardar is here. Callie with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada are here, some of my favorite people to do introductions to. And also Natural Products Canada. I don't think Darren's here today, but he has been in the past. CFIN, the Canadian Food Innovation Network, IRAP NRC, Alberta Innovates. These are all opportunities that I can help introduce you to. And please reach out to Julie and I. We'd look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Lourjo. We're ready for some questions. The microphone is over there, and while somebody's thinking of questions, by the way, I think everyone should have questions about financing. If you don't have questions on financing, you're the lucky ones in the room. As far as the international experience or trends in financing, what has been the interest to Canada and to Alberta in particular? And yes, and also on the international, like foreign governments, have they been promoting the industry in their respective countries, and what has been the interest towards Canada so far? Okay.
Okay, so I think that's one area that we could really expand upon, that international capital raising. I hear that from a number of people. There are a number of investment forums that are focused on agriculture that my team, there's 7 of us, will be going out to this year and meeting with people, with investors, and really flying the flag of Alberta. So I think that's something that we're growing. I can't say we're strong in that right now, but we're developing those relationships.
Yeah, as far as the international, I guess if
I'm
everyone
pretty regional, so
can't say anything.
I don't know. I think some of the stuff that I do read around the international stuff is, I forget the first gentleman, but talked about is that capital has dried up. The markets, right, have played a big part. He must have been American. Was he American? Yeah, because he talked about inflation and he talked about interest rates coming down. That's probably not as fast going to happen here in Canada. We have a much higher inflation rate. And so we do not actually see interest rates or propose that interest rates in Canada are going to drop as fast as the US. That's something maybe that I would agree or disagree with him on. But
Fair enough.
I think my only comment on this is that given where the industry is at right now, I think it's very unlikely for you to attract international investment. I think, you know, given some of the numbers I've heard today, you know, $20 million of production, crop production, 50,000 acres. You know, the size of the industry right now isn't going to attract that outside capital. That capital is most likely to come within Canada. And there is lots of capital in Canada. You know, you just have to be aware of how to get in front of it. But this province alone, this is one of the wealthiest provinces in Canada. There is a great deal of wealth that's been created in this province. It hasn't historically been particularly willing to diversify its way away from oil and gas. I can say that has changed substantially, particularly over the last 5 years. The investable, you know, the oil and gas industry has become less investable, and, you know, the prospective returns have really changed. And I think as a result, people who've built wealth in oil and gas here in the province are more willing to listen to stories related to new industries. We're seeing, you know, technology sectors emerge in the province, and I think this is, you know, this is the type of opportunity, given where the industry is at, that could actually attract a lot of capital, presented the right way and presented in a way that they understand how they're going to make their return on investment.
Very valuable. Thank you so much. Skirmantas, you have a question?
Yes. Can you guys hear me? Okay. A fellow Eastern European, spelled my name right. A quick comment and then a question to Lowell. Comment on ATB. I have personally been very actively engaging with ATB on financing a particular project. I cannot disclose all the details, but I can confirm that they are more than willing to bend backwards if there is a way. And I think they have the will, and, you know, the saying, where there's will, there'll be a way. But, Lowell, would you be so kind to emphasize more about these changes that are coming? For example, any bank, Crown Bank or not, would be happy to finance almost any project if there is, security. It's easy to finance something that you have 2 times of your working capital needs. If you have 2 times that real estate, anyone will finance that. What if there is no such easily liquid security, say inventory, say accounts receivable? Are we talking outside of real estate financing, or what are those changes? I'm curious. Thank you.
Sure. Great question, and thank you for the vote of confidence. I think when it comes to financing, some of the changes is internally. We had 2 separate credit departments. So we had a credit department that looked after ag, and we had a credit department that looked after what they call diversified business. And what we've done is move the agri-food and agribusiness credit decisioning into the agriculture credit department because it's too closely connected. So that's a big change, just to have a mindset, a single mindset in the agriculture industry to be able to push that through. A lot of the credit managers that maybe in the past, and this is probably with any bank to be quite honest, and I have worked at a big FI, some of those credit managers have never stepped on a farm. And they don't know agriculture. They've been in the cities most of their life. And in some places, a lot of that stuff is actually adjudicated out of Toronto when we're talking about the big 5 banks, or out of Calgary or Vancouver. And so to have that agriculture link is really, really tough. And so ATB strategically linked that together to get to the question around like unsecured debt. Yeah, there's more appetite for some unsecured debt. Holding a GSA or an ALPAP is what they call, which is basically a first position on your inventory and accounts receivables and some of that kind of stuff, that if things were to go sideways, we would be the first one, I guess, to be able to claim that being in first position. So the appetite is to be able to not take so much of a stock on real estate security and maybe cash security, and look at some of more of the operating needs on an unsecured spot. But if you're going to come in and ask for millions upon millions unsecured debt, I'll just tell you that's going to be a no. It just doesn't happen. So it just case by case.
Fair enough. Much like in most agricultural lending, unsecured debt is not the most popular thing, let's put it this way.
Well, I think people need to realize is that real estate security is going to get you the best interest rate. So if you're worried about interest rate and costs that way, and your margin and within your company, and you've got the real estate security, even if it's not part of the, maybe it's a secured guarantor or something like that, maybe it's outside of that, and you're willing to put it up as security and share some of that risk, you're going to get a better interest rate when it's real estate secured.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Next to the mic, Tim, please.
Yeah, thank you. The question I have is for Laurie Jo. You've been in this role now for your current role for 2 ministers. You've been in the agricultural department for quite a while.
Quite a while, yeah.
So
we'll just leave it at that.
yeah, and we do appreciate everything you do. I mean, don't get us wrong here. And my question to you is, can you give us a report card? Like, as an industry, and as Jesse says, an industry that's not quite emerging on the fiber side yet, but how have we been doing as an industry in hemp promoting to the government? We heard the Premier's comments last night. We heard RJ's comments today that we're going to diversify, that we're the last kick in the can at this oil and gas. So if you could let us know, like, what's going on in the ag office, the minister's office, like, are we representing ourselves well? Is there something else we should be doing? Are we organized enough? Moving forward, is there something better as an industry that we could be doing to let the government of Alberta know that this is going to be a huge industry, and I'm not saying that they should just give out money. What I'm saying is that the support to help drive more investment this way. And if you just give us a little report card of how we've been doing up to now and what you're hearing in behind the scenes.
Okay. Ken? Ken's an executive director. He should be answering this question, not me.
Sorry, Joe, we're all
Somebody
friends
has to
here.
live the veil.
Come on.
Yeah, we do. We have an empty chair here. Ken, you can sit on the hot seat here. I think that Manny and Corey have been doing an amazing job getting the word out to the ministry and to the government of Alberta. Like we've never had that sense of exposure of hemp ever. So kudos go to both of those gentlemen. It's just, I keep thinking getting one or two under our belt, and we really are. Like, I just love to hear your story, Aaron. I just love to hear that. It's, you're out there, you're making it happen, and Dan, you're next to talk. You guys are making it happen, and that's what's gonna attract more capital and more interest from the government. The minister suggested about a marketing council, and it's not an easy route, but like he says, you are at the table then. When the big commodities are at the table, then you're at the table with them. So I think that would be a bar to really work toward. But I'm still fighting the good fight within the government. So I'm hopeful. It's a conversation that's happening more and more about hemp. I don't have to explain hemp as much as I used to. So Jan, you're busy at it too. Yeah. Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah, that wasn't an easy. It's not an easy answer, but collaboration and working together, we'll get there.
Converting one conversation, one mind at a time, right? Absolutely. Next question. Oh, sorry. Did you have any other comments? No? Okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I've stood up in a panel before and talked about financing, and my financing experience has been, if you don't have 2 years of positive EBITDA, don't even spend the time. And so hearing the ATB comments was really refreshing to me. What the old stance has done is that some of us have been in it for a while, and we're focused on positive EBITDA. So you've heard one speaker today talk about positive EBITDA, and I'm the second one. But to do that in an emerging industry, you have to cut somewhere. So your product and market development costs are reduced, or you spend less on that. And some people say that's great because you have a focus. And as an industry, we haven't been really good at focus. So I would say the last year or so has created a focus that has to happen. But I guess for me, it's exciting to know that there's a possibility out there that might be money available because, well, for me personally, and I'm glad my wife supports the financial side, but we just fund ourselves, and we've done that and built a business, and it's a good business now. But to be able to grow the industry fast enough as an emerging industry takes a lot of money, and so I'm glad to hear that ATB and your group is moving that direction. So hope to have a chat. Yeah, so that's all I want to say. I just think that if that's available, then we can spend some money on marketing and product development, which is just, it's not infrastructure. We've built some infrastructure. Now we got to get that market side, and I chatted a bit about that earlier. Thanks.
Thanks. And I think it's important to know that those conversations are happening. And I think hopefully that message comes across as a recognition that maybe ATB and probably other financial institutions are adapting and willing to look at, and it's not just the hemp industry, it's all agri-food, agribusiness, and the growth within the province of Alberta, I'm going to speak for ATB here, is we ourselves have to evolve. We ourselves have to change some of our policies. We can't bank like it's 1999 anymore, right? And so we have to change. And so having people like Anton, myself, and some others coming in and creating some change and some conversation, saying, this needs to change if we want to grow. We want to grow just like you want to grow. And so that's where the conversation starts. And changing some of those policies are there. And I think the big thing that you as a producer, or you as an agri-food, agribusiness, make sure your business plan is correct. And if you're going to show that, or if you're willing to admit that it's going to take 3 years to ramp up before you're starting to be profitable, then say that up front. And then there'll be hard questions you have to answer. But to pretend that everything's going to be, roses and unicorns and gold and all that, whatever you want to say, that's when any lender is going to say, well, we know it's tough. And are you really reflecting at it with openness to say, yeah, this is going to be a tough journey, but if you're back behind us and I'm in it and I've got a vested interest in this, or a vested connection to it, then I think we can have that conversation.
I just wanted to add, I know your comments were directed more at ATB, but to the extent that you're EBITDA positive and ATB can't come through, which we don't know at this point, but I guess my point is there are other solutions that avail themselves to someone who's hit that cash flow positive perspective, whether it's alternate lenders, private equity, just other sources of funding that aren't generally there when you're in startup phase or if you're burning cash getting to that level. So those opportunities may also have availed themselves to you if you've reached that stage now.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next question.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tatum. I'm the other banker in the room with Farm Credit. And also, I'm one of the other Indigenous people in the room. So I wanted to just take a minute and draw attention to thank you for this room for having us here. There's so many rooms that we're not in, and so I'm super excited to be here with my friends and teammates at the Frog Lake Cree Nation to be part of this room. And I hope that in years to come, we're going to be 3-4-fold in this room. I wonder, as more opportunities start coming on Nation, what is it looking like at ATB or in other programs for supporting First Nations coming into agriculture, re-emerging into agriculture, because we've always been in agriculture, coming back to agriculture and playing in that non-secured space, because that's where banks have to live in this on reserve while the Indian Act is active.
So thank you. I don't know, I've never had the pleasure of meeting you. You probably know who I am. I spent 13 years with Farm Credit Canada, so before I moved to ATB, and I know about their Indigenous policies and stuff like that. So over to ATB, same thing. Indigenous policies is something they're tackling. It's something we're looking at. Actually, it's already in play, and it's probably very similar to what you would see at FCC and some of the other places. It's about the conversation. It really comes down to the conversation and being able to have that openness to discuss. And I have done some Indigenous lending and are very familiar with on-reserve lending as far as security and things like that. So it's there with ATB. I can only speak about that, and it would be not quite far from what FCC would provide.
From my perspective, I think there's a tremendous opportunity. As someone who's not Indigenous, I've had the opportunity to work with a number of bands on a number of different capital and financing projects. And there is a huge opportunity now coming down the pipe with the amount of funding that is availing itself to them in land settlement trusts and in other vehicles. I think it's a great opportunity for the industry to consider Indigenous partners as equity partners and other strategic partners. I think there are other strategic benefits, potentially working on reserve. And there's a real issue for a lot of Indigenous bands who don't have the same competitive advantages because of location that the hemp industry actually might solve for. Because if you are much closer to a large municipality, you probably have better economic opportunities. If you're closer to resources, you probably have better economic opportunities. I would, my little bit of advice to the room on this is that I think you need to be patient. I think you need to build relationships. I think you have to be careful about painting with one brush. There's a lot of differences amongst the bands. There's some collaboration. There's some politics involved in it, and you have to be attuned to some of that. I also think it's going to take some time and to get comfort and on the other side for bands to put money to work. This is new for many of them in terms of having this type of capital. Many of them are interested in economic development, building a legacy, building wealth for the band, and I think this gives them a great opportunity. I think there's a huge opportunity for non-Indigenous people to help and try and bridge that knowledge gap, because for many bands this is a first time in having this type of capital, and so they're going to need advice, they're going to need good governance, and I think there's a huge role for all of us to create more reconciliation economically, and it's a great opportunity. I presume, Vitaly, you actually have some things.
I want to say a few words.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from you on this issue. Yeah, I'll let you go.
Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you. Wonderful question, very timely. As I mentioned before, I'm on the board of Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation. Those of you who don't know what it is, it's a Crown corporation that was established in 2019, so very new. With the sole purpose, promoting and advancing prosperity of Indigenous communities and in the context of economic reconciliation. With that in mind, Jason Kenney, when he set it up, the initial sector allocation was 100% oil and gas, primarily midstream oil and gas. This is where we've started. Nonetheless, over the years, the focus has gradually expanded. So as of last year, we have had other sectors added to the portfolio, and agriculture was essentially the second right after oil and gas as it was added, in addition to telecommunications, transportation, and related infrastructure, whatever that might mean in the context of every industry listed. So agriculture is definitely very high on the priority list when it comes to focus of AIOC. That being said, however, we haven't executed a single project yet in agriculture. As a little bit about details, we don't give away the money. We guarantee the loans that are being used to acquire equity stakes by Indigenous communities in businesses, whether it's readily available or existing businesses or the new ones. We actually funded a couple of the green fields as well in the energy sector. So with that in mind, I encourage all the businesses who are here and maybe outside of the room as well, to think about possibilities of partnership with Indigenous communities, one or more. Most of our projects are actually multi-community, not just one-to-one, that could bring the benefits to you, not only in a way of access to capital, but also skill sets, diversification of your labor force, geographic exposure, market exposure, and so on and so forth. In the context of exploring those opportunities, AIOC is offering what's called capacity grants. Those are the grants that are available for projects that are, very material, the ones that are clearly defined and are looking for funding. The capacity grants, anywhere between $100,000, the highest one we've done was over $1 million, to help both communities and corporates to go through the process of finding the right solution, finding the right model of cooperation. So please do look into that. As far as the investment criteria, what are some of the things AIOC are looking for? It's all on the website of AIOC for the most part. If you have more questions, the team is happy to answer that. But one thing that is coming very loud and clear across the things we're working on right now and thinking is, how do we extrapolate the experience and knowledge from the oil and gas industry onto investing in other sectors, agriculture included, in the context of guarantees? The risk mitigation is the critical component of what we do. And to that extent, we give guarantees essentially to the lenders. So it's the lender's criteria, and on top of that, the government criteria. So that's becoming fairly strict. Nonetheless, it's not to say it's impossible. And what we're looking for is a two-way communication. If we see and hear that the criteria are beyond the abilities of anyone to borrow, obviously we'll have to revisit in that context. It's not a quick process. It probably will take months, but nonetheless, it's the important dialogue. Why? Because without it, we won't be able to diversify the portfolio. So to that extent, I do encourage you to look at the Indigenous partnerships. There's tremendous value in that to both sides, and AIOC is there to help and support. Just so you know, today was made an announcement that BC is following the suit and is establishing a very similar, essentially a mirror corporation to what we do with pretty much the same mandate. And that's BC, the ones that have been objecting to that the most, essentially. Feds to follow, but so far it's BC to follow suit. So there you go.
And is this on? Yeah. We've had some good conversations with Carol and her team, but we'll get a project in there soon, hopefully.
Wonderful, yeah, looking forward.
Yeah, so I wanted to mention our sister ministry, Indigenous Relations. They have the Aboriginal ABIS, so Aboriginal Business Investment Fund, and it can fund between $150,000 to $750,000 to support community cooperative with business projects. And I used to sit on the review committee, and we had a number of agriculture projects go through there. So that's another one that I'd like to highlight, and it's continuous intake, and you do need a community involved. So it's not just a business, a community involved. And a good example in another industry is the Blood Tribe, Kenai Forage. They're one of my clients, and they have international markets for their forages across the world. So there are good examples in Alberta. We need to move forward some hemp ones.
Absolutely, and education to that extent, both the communities and the corporations is critical in that context. One thing to mention, our minimum project size right now is $20 million. That's just the Indigenous component. They can go as high as, pretty much we don't have a restriction, but largest ones we're looking at are in hundreds of millions of dollars. The total portfolio right now is $3 billion, so there's plenty of room. Please look at it. Please use it. Yeah. Any more? Thank you. Of course.
Heard today is co-ops. Is there a role for the relationship of farmers getting together, of suppliers getting together? I know, Peter, you mentioned building an industry is what we do here, even though you may go and compete as a business. But co-ops are sort of something in between, where the players do in fact get together to achieve, whether it be marketing together or whatever it is. Anybody want to address the role of co-ops in our future?
So looking into past for the future answers, right? Please.
Okay, looking both sides. So cooperatives, I can only answer from a finance perspective, obviously. Cooperatives are very hard to finance, and mostly because there's so many owners, and with so many owners, not everyone has the same stake in the game, and so they don't necessarily always agree on borrowing the same, or what the amount of money is, and what you're taking as guarantees from them individually or whatever. Now, with that being said, we've done some alliance type stuff, like a grazing alliance, or like a breeders association or feeders association. So I wouldn't say it's impossible, but that co-op would have to be very like-minded.
Thank you, Lowell. Do we have any more questions? None? Well, if that's the case, I think we will wrap it up. And just to remind, Peter and his company, Raintree Financial, are hosting the drinks afterwards, right? So thank you, Peter. And thank you so much to the panelists and to everyone who asked the questions for insightful conversation on financing. Thank you.